It's not every day you see one of the most prominent voices in sports media publicly apologize to an NBA team owner. But that's exactly what happened this week following a heated exchange between ESPN analyst Stephen A. Smith and Phoenix Suns owner Mat Ishbia. The spat stemmed from a bold, some might say outrageous, comment made by Smith, where he called Ishbia one of the worst owners in NBA history and even invoked a name synonymous with disgrace in the league. Earlier this week on ESPN's First Take, Stephen A. Smith went in hard on Mat Ishbia's short tenure as the Suns owner. He didn't just criticize, he made a massive declaration, stating directly, "Mat Ishbia needs to understand that right now. You are on the verge of being recognized as the worst owner in the history of basketball." That's a heavy statement on its own. But Smith didn't stop there. He then added, "That's saying a lot. That's saying a lot. Donald Sterling once owned an NBA franchise. That's the trajectory. If you're Mat Ishbia, that you are on right now. Being recognized as arguably the worst owner in the history of basketball." Bringing Donald Sterling into the comparison immediately escalated the situation dramatically. Mat Ishbia was not happy about this, particularly the comparison to Donald Sterling. Speaking at the Suns' season-end news conference, Ishbia made it clear he generally doesn't take much of what Smith says seriously, a sentiment he believes many share. However, he drew a firm line at being mentioned in the same breath as Sterling. Ishbia stated, "He's doing his thing, he's on the mic, and I think he'll apologize to me because I think it's disrespectful to put my name aligned with anybody that was kicked out of the league or no longer part of it." He specifically demanded an apology for that comparison. And Ishbia was absolutely right to demand that apology. Comparing his ownership, based purely on team performance, to Donald Sterling is completely out of line and frankly, inappropriate. Donald Sterling received a lifetime ban from the NBA and was forced to sell the Los Angeles Clippers after making racist comments in a recorded conversation with his mistress. Among many other problematic behaviors that had spanned decades. The article also reminds us that the man Ishbia bought the Suns from, Robert Sarver, also faced serious allegations of racism, misogyny, and fostering a poor workplace culture before he sold the team. Mat Ishbia, whatever the Suns' on-court issues are, is not at that level of misconduct or league-altering scandal. To his credit, Stephen A. Smith did apologize for the comparison on Friday. He admitted it was not wise to put Ishbia in the same category as Sterling. Smith clarified that he meant to compare them purely in basketball terms, judging them solely on their record of building a successful team, and did not intend to compare them as people or on the level of the controversies surrounding Sterling. However, while the Sterling comparison was retracted, Smith still stood by his broader criticism of Ishbia's ownership performance, and looking purely at the on-court results since Ishbia took over. It's easier to see where that criticism originates, even if the delivery was flawed. The Suns finished this season with a disappointing 34-46 record and missed the playoffs entirely for the first time since 2020. This happened despite ownership spending a significant amount of money and entering the season with a highly touted Big Three of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal. The issues go beyond just the regular season record. They fired head coach Mike Budenholzer, meaning the team is now looking for its fourth head coach in 4 seasons. There are also reports that Kevin Durant is likely to be on the move this offseason after a potential trade fell through earlier this year. Ishbia himself admitted that this season was both embarrassing and a failure, acknowledging that the high expectations were not met despite the significant investment. Ishbia acknowledged the validity of that criticism, stating, "If he wants to say the first 2.5 years Mat Ishbia bought the team, we didn't win a championship. I think you could probably say that about almost every owner ever. But yeah, we had high expectations, but we didn't win." He added, "We spent a lot of money and we didn't win. Yep, be critical of me on that." So, while Stephen A. Smith apologized for the completely inappropriate comparison to Donald Sterling, he hasn't backed down from his criticism of Mat Ishbia based on the team's performance and management decisions since he took over. Ishbia believes Smith was out of line with the comparison and doesn't truly believe he's the worst owner ever. Smith clarified his intent but maintained his critical stance on the basketball side of things. This suggests that despite the apology on the most sensitive point, Don't expect this particular media feud to die down anytime soon. The pressure remains on Ishbia to deliver on the significant investment he's made in the Suns. What do you think about this spat? Was Stephen A. Smith out of line? Let us know in the comments below.
Stephen A. Smith finally did the rarest thing in sports media. He backtracked. After going full throttle earlier this week, claiming Mat Ishbia was on pace to be the worst owner in NBA history and recklessly name-dropping Donald Sterling in the process, Smith walked it back on Friday with a public apology. Sort of. To be clear, Smith still stands by his take that Ishbia's tenure as Suns owner has been a disaster so far, but he admitted comparing him to Sterling, the disgraced former Clippers owner banned for life due to racist comments, was a step too far. Fesh. Ishbia's response, unbothered but not amused. I don't take much of what he says seriously, Ishbia said at the Suns' season-ending press conference. I don't think many people do. But he drew a hard line at being lumped in with someone like Sterling, calling it disrespectful and predicting an apology was on the way. And to his credit, Stephen A. delivered. Why Smith even went there in the first place? The Suns flamed out in spectacular fashion this season. A 34-46 record, missed the playoffs entirely. Another coaching change, they're on head coach number 4 in 4 seasons, and a supposed super team of Durant, Booker, and Beal that looked more like a 2K roster experiment gone wrong. Smith's point was that for all the big spending, bold trades, and flashy front office moves, Ishbia's management has resulted in less success, not more. And in the world of win-now sports ownership, that'll earn you some heat. But comparing that to the toxic ownership legacies of Sterling or even Sarver, Ishbia's predecessor, is apples to radioactive oranges. The bigger picture. This clash between Smith and Ishbia reflects a larger tension happening in the NBA. The difference between loud ambition and actual success. Ishbia bought the team for $4 billion, brought in stars, made aggressive trades, and pushed for a championship immediately. But results haven't followed, and patience is wearing thin, especially when KD could be on the move again this summer. As for Smith, the apology might cool things temporarily, but you know he's not done talking Suns. This feud has more legs than a late-season 10-seed play-in push. So buckle up. Between the off-season drama, the coaching search, and the potential Durant trade saga, the Suns are still going to be must-watch, even if they're not winning.